The phone rang at 2047 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I had been lying awake anyway. The way old men do, listening to the radiator tick and the refrigerator hum downstairs. My wife Martha passed 11 years ago, and I still hadn't learned to sleep through a whole night without her, so when the phone went off, I was already half sitting up, reaching for it before the second ring. "Mr. Ashby?" A woman's voice. Clipped. Professional. "This is St. Catherine's Hospital. Your son-in-law has been brought into emergency surgery. We need you here as soon as possible." I sat there for a moment with the phone against my ear. My son-in-law. Not my daughter. My son-in-law, Greg. What happened? I finally got out. A vehicle collision. That's all I'm able to tell you over the line. The attending physician will speak with you when you arrive. And my daughter, Lena. Your daughter is here, sir. She's not injured. She asked us to call you. I told her I was on my way. I hung up and sat on the edge of the bed in my undershirt and pajama pants, and for a long minute I didn't move. I just stared at the wallpaper Martha picked out in 1994. Little blue flowers. Faded now. You have to understand something about Greg, my son-in-law. I never liked him, not from the first Thanksgiving Lena brought him home 8 years ago, when he sat at my dining room table and complimented Martha's stuffing 3 different times in the same sentence. He was a salesman of some kind back then. Insurance, I think. Or it might have been securities. He had that handshake. Too firm, held too long. Eyes that didn't quite meet yours. And he laughed at everything I said, even the things that weren't funny. Especially those. But Lena loved him. Said he made her feel safe, and Martha told me in the kitchen that night while I was drying dishes that I needed to give him a chance. So I did. For Lena, I did. I got dressed. Jeans, the flannel shirt over a sweater because October in central Pennsylvania doesn't mess around at 3 in the morning. I grabbed the keys off the hook and went out to the truck. The driveway was wet. It had been raining off and on for 2 days. The hospital was 43 miles away. I know because I'd driven that stretch 100 times when Martha was going through her chemo. The road through the hills, the closed-up produce stand, the bend by the reservoir where the deer always crossed. I drove faster than I should have. The radio was off. I just listened to the tires on the wet asphalt and tried to keep my hands from shaking. Why hadn't Lena called me herself? That was the thing eating at me. Even if she was in shock, even if she was crying, she would have called. Unless she couldn't. Unless someone wouldn't let her. I shook that thought off. I was being an old fool. Greg had been in a car accident. That was all. I pulled into the emergency lot at 4018 in the morning. The automatic doors slid open and I stepped into that smell hospitals have. The one you never get used to no matter how many times you visit. I went to the desk and gave Greg's name, and they pointed me toward the 3rd floor. Lena was sitting in a row of vinyl chairs outside the surgical wing. She looked up when she saw me, and her face just crumpled. She was wearing yoga pants and one of Greg's flannel shirts, and her hair was up in that messy way she does when she doesn't have time to brush it. She stood up and I wrapped my arms around her, and she cried into my shoulder like she was 9 years old again and had skinned her knee on the driveway. "Daddy, I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here." She pulled back and wiped her face with the heel of her hand. "He's still in surgery. They said his liver and there was internal bleeding, and, Daddy, I don't even know what happened. He told me he was going to the gym. He said he'd be back by 10. And then the police were at the door at 1 in the morning. Where did it happen? Out on Route 6, by the exit for Brookhaven." I didn't say anything. But Brookhaven is 40 minutes the wrong direction from any gym in our town. And Greg owned a gym membership 2 miles from his house. A nurse came down the corridor and asked if we wanted coffee. Lena nodded. I said no thank you. The nurse said the surgeon would come out as soon as they had news, but it could be hours yet. Lena sat back down, and I sat next to her and held her hand. Her hand was so small. I'd forgotten how small. We sat there in silence for a long time. A man in scrubs walked by pushing an empty gurney. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang twice and stopped. The clock above the nurse's station ticked. I watched the second hand go around and around. Around 5:30, the surgeon came out. He was older than I expected, late 50s maybe, gray at the temples, with deep lines around his mouth like he'd spent his life delivering news to families in waiting rooms. His name tag said, Dr. Halvorson. He pulled off his cap and held it in both hands. Mrs. Croft? Lena stood up so fast she nearly fell. I steadied her elbow. Your husband is alive. He's stable. The surgery went well, but he's going to be in recovery for a while. We had to remove part of his liver, and there was some damage to his spleen. He's a strong man. He'll pull through. Lita let out a sound that was half a sob and half a laugh. She covered her face with her hands. Mrs. Croft, you've been here all night. Why don't you go to the cafeteria? Get yourself something to eat. He won't wake for at least 4 hours. There's nothing you can do right now but rest. He turned to me. Mr. Ashby, could I have a word? Just for a moment. Some paperwork I'd like to go over. Lena nodded vacantly. The nurse appeared again with that coffee and gently steered her down the hall. I watched my daughter walk away from me with the cup shaking in her hand, and then I turned to Dr. Halvorson, and the look on his face made my stomach turn over. This way, please. He led me down a side corridor to a small room with a desk and 2 chairs and a box of tissues. He closed the door behind us. Then he locked it. I heard the bolt slide. Doctor, what's going on? He didn't sit. He stood with his back against the door, and he looked at me the way a man looks at another man when he's about to ask him to carry something terrible. Mr. Ashby, I need to tell you some things, and I need you to listen carefully, because we don't have much time. Your daughter is in danger. Your grandchildren are in danger. And what I'm about to do could end my career. I felt my legs go a little weak. There was a chair behind me, but I didn't sit. What are you talking about? He reached inside his white coat and pulled out a manila envelope. It was thick, folded over twice and held with a rubber band. He held it out to me with both hands like it was something fragile. Take this. Don't open it here. Take your grandchildren and leave the city. Tonight. Drive somewhere your son-in-law doesn't know about. A motel. A relative. Anywhere. But do not go back to your daughter's house. Do not let your son-in-law know what is in this envelope, and do not, under any circumstances, let him see you with it. My hands were trembling as I took it. It was warm from being against his body. Doctor, I don't understand. He glanced at his watch. When we brought your son-in-law in, we ran the standard talk screen. Anesthesia interactions. We have to. He had 3 substances in his blood that he shouldn't have had. None of them illegal. But all of them prescription medications. None prescribed to him. What kind of medications? 2 were sedatives. The kind you give a person if you want them to stop fighting. 1 was a heart medication that, taken with the other 2, would cause cardiac arrest within 90 minutes. They were in his system when he crashed. I just stared at him. Mr. Ashby, listen to me. Your son-in-law did not crash that car because he was drunk or distracted. He crashed because he was being slowly killed. By the time we got him on the table, he had 10 minutes left to live, maybe less. Someone had been dosing him. Lena? I felt sick saying her name. You think no, not your daughter. Open the envelope when you're alone. Read everything. Then you'll understand. But you need to go now. The grandchildren. They're at the house, correct? Yes. With their aunt, Greg's sister. She came over. Mr. Ashby. His voice was a whisper now. There is no sister. I stared at him. I had reason to look into something 3 days ago. Your son-in-law's name came across my desk in an unrelated context. I'm not at liberty to say more about how, but what I found out when I started pulling threads. Mr. Ashby, your daughter has been the target of a long arrangement, a very long one. And the woman in your daughter's house right now is not who she says she is. Now go. Please, get the children. I don't remember leaving that room. I remember being in the corridor and looking down at the envelope in my hands like I didn't know how it got there. I remember walking past the nurse's station and seeing Lena in the cafeteria doorway, holding her coffee. And I remember forcing my face into something normal. Sweetheart. Daddy, is everything okay? You look... just paperwork. Hospital paperwork. Listen, I had to think fast. My mind was scrambling. I'm going to run home and get a change of clothes for you. Some of your things from the closet. And I'm going to stop and check on the kids, make sure their aunt has everything she needs. You stay here with Greg. Don't move. Just stay. She nodded slowly. Their aunt called me before you got here. About an hour ago. She said the kids slept right through and she'd keep them home from school today. Of course she would. That's smart. You stay. I'll be back by lunch. Daddy, you sure you're okay? You're white as a sheet. It's been a long night, baby. That's all. I kissed the top of her head. Her hair smelled like her mother's shampoo. The same brand. I'd thrown out the bottle in our bathroom 3 years after Martha passed, and Lena had given me a new one for Christmas, without me asking, and I'd cried in my truck about that for a long time. I held my daughter's head against my chest for 1 extra second. Then I walked away. I made it to the parking garage. I made it to my truck. I sat behind the wheel, and I opened the envelope. The first thing was a photograph. A driver's license. The face was a woman in her late 30s. Brown hair, plain features. The kind of face you wouldn't remember if you passed her in a grocery store. The name on the license was Dana Pierce. But there was a sticky note on it, in pen. Aliases. Karen Sloan. Diana Pierce. Daria Pierce. Convictions for fraud in 2 states. Currently has open warrant in Ohio. Goes by Diane in your daughter's home. Diane. Greg's sister. The one who'd come for Thanksgiving last year. The one who babysat my grandchildren. The one who, right now, was alone in the house with 2 children, ages 6 and 4. I flipped to the next page. Bank records. An account I didn't recognize. Greg's name on it. Wire transfers, regular ones every month. Going back almost 3 years. Tens of thousands of dollars. Going out, not coming in. The next page. A life insurance policy. Lena's name on it as the insured. The beneficiary was Greg. The amount was $1.6 million. Issued 4 years ago. Another policy. Same insurance company. Same insured. Beneficiary Greg. Amount $2 million. Beneficiary Greg. Amount $2 million. Issued 19 months ago. A third policy. $2.5 million. Issued 7 months ago. $6 million on my daughter's life. $6 million. I put my forehead against the steering wheel and I tried to breathe. I tried. The next document was a photocopy of a marriage certificate, not Greg's and Lena's. A different one. The groom's name was different. Gregory Mellon instead of Gregory Croft. But the photograph stapled to the certificate showed the same man. My son-in-law. Married in Indiana in 2009 to a woman named Heather Mallon, who died in 2012 in a house fire that was ruled accidental. Another marriage certificate. Gregory Cowman, married in Iowa, 2014. Wife passed away in 2017. The death certificate was attached. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. She was 31 years old. Then he married my daughter in 2017. 6 months after that other woman died. 6 months. There was a handwritten note in the back of the envelope. Dr. Halverson's writing. The same scrawl from the script pad. I am sorry. I came across the connection through a former colleague who works in fraud investigation for the insurance carrier. He flagged the patterns to me last week. I asked questions. I learned more. I had planned to bring this to authorities at the end of this week. I never expected your son-in-law to be on my surgical table tonight. Someone got to him first. I believe that person is the woman in your daughter's house. I believe she was his accomplice. and that something went wrong between them. I cannot prove it yet, but your daughter and the children are not safe. Trust no one. Take them and go. I sat in that truck for I don't know how long. The sun was starting to come up, pale gray light over the roof of the garage. A janitor walked past with a mop bucket. Somewhere, a car alarm went off and stopped. Then, I started the engine. Lena and Greg lived 22 miles from the hospital, on the south side of town. A little ranch house with a fenced yard and a swing set Greg had put together himself 2 summers ago. I'd helped him drill the posts. I remember thinking, watching him work, that maybe I'd been wrong about him. That maybe a man who builds a swing set for his kids on a Sunday afternoon couldn't be all bad. I called my brother Hal on the drive over. He's 4 years younger than me, lives an hour west, retired Navy. I told him I needed him, and I needed him now, and I couldn't explain on the phone. He said he'd be at the house in 55 minutes. He didn't ask another question. That's how. I drove past Lena's house twice. The first time, I just wanted to see. The lights were on in the kitchen. The drapes were drawn in the living room. A car was in the driveway that I didn't recognize. A silver sedan with Ohio plates. My grandchildren's car seats were visible in the back seat through the rear window. The second time, I pulled into the driveway like nothing was wrong. I had to keep my face normal. I had to. I knocked on the front door. 3 soft knocks, the way I always do. I heard footsteps on the hardwood. A pause at the peephole. Then the door opened. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. Hair pulled back. A kitchen towel in her hand. Mr. Ashby, Lena called me. She said you might come by. Is Greg all right? He's out of surgery. He's going to make it. Oh, thank God. She pressed the hand with the towel against her chest. She looked relieved. She looked exactly the way a worried sister-in-law would look, and I thought, you are very good at this. You have done this before. Diane, I came to get the kids. Lena wants them with me. The doctor said it'll be a long recovery, and she wants them to be with their grandfather. Routine. You know. She tilted her head a little. Just a little. I think she'd want me to keep them here, actually. They're settled. They had pancakes this morning. They're watching cartoons. She told me on the phone half an hour ago. Lena's pretty distressed. Just want to honor what she asked for. I smiled. I made myself smile. The same smile I'd given her at the Christmas dinner table last year, when she told us all about her job in dental administration, which I now realized she had probably invented on the spot. She held the door for a moment longer. Then she stepped back. Of course. Come on in. I'll get their things. I appreciate it. Why don't I go say hi to them, and you can get a bag together? I walked past her into the house. My ears were ringing. The kids were on the couch in pajamas. Owen, 6, and Brielle, 4. Owen looked up, and his whole face lit up. He came running and wrapped his arms around my legs. Grandpa, hey buddy, hey sweet pea. I picked Brielle up off the couch. She was warm and sleepy and smelled like maple syrup. We're going on an adventure. You guys want to come to Grandpa's house for a few days? Owen nodded like this was the best thing he'd ever heard. Brielle put her thumb in her mouth and tucked her head into my neck. Where's Mommy? Owen asked. Mommy's helping Daddy at the hospital. Daddy got a little sick, but he's getting better. Mommy will see us tonight, okay? He nodded again. 6 years old. He trusted me completely. I felt that trust like a stone in my chest. Diane was in the hallway with a duffel bag. I packed some things. Pajamas, toothbrushes, their stuffed animals are already in there. Thank you, Mr. Ashby. She set the bag down. She was standing between me and the front door. She wasn't smiling anymore. Are you sure Lena said this? Because she texted me 20 minutes ago and didn't mention you coming. I just want to be careful. I felt the air in the room change. Owen was watching us. I shifted Brielle on my hip. She did. We just talked. She probably forgot to text you, given everything. Why don't I give her a quick call? Just to confirm. Won't take a second. Sure, I said. Go right ahead. She held my eyes for a half-second too long. Then she reached for her phone on the kitchen counter. I knew in that moment that if Lena answered, it was over. Lena would tell her she hadn't said anything about me taking the kids. Diane would know. I knew, and what happened after that I couldn't guess. But there was something I'd noticed when I came in. Something I'd registered without thinking about it. Her phone, sitting next to a coffee cup on the counter, had been ringing as I walked through. The screen had shown the hospital's number. She'd silenced it. She'd been ducking the hospital's calls, which meant Lena had probably been trying to reach her, and she hadn't picked up, and Lena didn't know I was here. I made a decision in that half-second. Owen, hold Grandpa's hand. We're going out to the truck. Bree, hold on tight. I started walking toward the door. I didn't run. Running would have set her off. I just walked. Mr. Ashby. Wait. Have a good morning, Diane. Tell Lena I'll have them home soon. She stepped in front of me. She was a small woman, 5'4", maybe 120 pounds, but there was something in her eyes now, calm and flat and considering, that I knew I would think about for the rest of my life. Mr. Ashby, put her down. Move out of my way, please. I'm asking you to put her down. Owen squeezed my hand harder. He understood, in the way kids understand. He understood that something was wrong. I had 3 inches and 60 pounds on her. I was 67 years old, with arthritis in my left knee and a bad back from 40 years of installing HVAC systems. But I had 3 inches and 60 pounds on her, and I had my granddaughter in my arms and my grandson at my side. Diane, I'm walking out of this house. Get out of my way. I think she would have done it. I think she would have come at me. But behind her, through the kitchen window, headlights swept across the driveway. A truck pulled in fast. Hal, 40 minutes early. She saw the headlights and the calm slipped off her face like a mask coming undone. She turned and looked, and that was the second I needed. I pushed past her. The front door was 3 steps. I yanked it open. Hal was already getting out of his truck, 6'2", 63 years old, 20 years of military bearing still in him, walking up the path like he had all the right in the world. Hal, kids in your truck, now. He didn't ask. He scooped Owen up under one arm and took Brielle from me in his other. And he was back in his truck in maybe 4 seconds. I followed. Diane stood in the doorway. She watched us. She didn't come out. I got into my truck. Hal pulled out. I followed. We were on the highway in 3 minutes. He called me from his cab. Where am I going? Anywhere. Just drive. North. I'll catch up. I have to make a phone call. You got it. I pulled off at a rest area 12 miles up the road. I sat in the truck and I dialed 911. I told them everything I could. The hospital. The doctor. The woman in my daughter's house. The Ohio warrant. I gave them the address. I gave them my son-in-law's name and the aliases written on the sticky note. I told them my daughter was at St. Catharines and needed protection. The dispatcher was good. Calm. She asked me to stay on the line. I heard her relaying it. She told me a unit was already heading toward the house. She told me another unit was going to the hospital. I sat in that truck and watched the cars go by on the interstate, and I thought about my Martha, about what she'd say if she were here. She'd liked Greg. She'd defended him to me. He's good to her, Walt. Look at her face when she looks at him. She would have been heartbroken to learn the truth. I was glad in a small, dark corner of my heart that she didn't have to. I caught up with Hal at a diner outside Williamsport. He'd ordered the kids hot chocolate and pancakes. Owen was telling him about his soccer team. Brielle was drawing on a placemat with a crayon, a horse with too many legs. Hal looked at me over their heads and didn't ask. He just nodded. I stepped outside and called the hospital. I told them to put me through to Lena's phone. She picked up on the second ring. Daddy. Sweetheart, listen to me. I want you to stay exactly where you are. Don't move from Greg's room. The kids are with me and Uncle Hal. They're safe. The police are coming to the hospital to talk to you. I want you to do what they say. Daddy. Daddy, what's happening? What is happening? I'll explain when I see you. I promise. I just need you to trust me right now. She was crying. I could hear her trying not to. I trust you, Daddy. 4 words. The 4 hardest words a parent waits to hear, when they realize their grown child still believes in them. I sat down on the curb outside that diner, and I let myself cry for the first time in a long time. They picked Diane up 40 minutes later, at the bus station 2 towns over. She'd left the house 10 minutes after we did. She had a packed bag in the back of her car and $4,000 cash in an envelope in her purse. The Ohio warrant was indeed open. Fraud, identity theft, and a charge involving an elderly man in Cincinnati who had died of complications from a fall. Her real name was Dana Pierce, and she'd been working confidence schemes with Greg, or whatever his real name turned out to be, since at least 2011. That part of the story unspooled slowly over the next 6 months. The detective assigned to the case, a woman named Sandra Morrissey, who treated my daughter with a gentleness I will never stop being grateful for, sat with us in her office and walked us through what they'd pieced together. Greg's real name was Carl Anders. Born in southern Ohio, walked out of a community college sociology program in 2008 and reinvented himself 3 times in the next decade. Heather Mallon, his first wife, had owned a modest house and a small inheritance from her grandmother. The fire took both. The second wife, the woman in Iowa, had taken out the life insurance policy herself 9 months before her death. Her family had always thought something was off. They just couldn't prove anything. The pattern with Lena had been the same. Slow. Patient. He'd waited 4 years to take out the first policy. Built our trust. Had 2 children with her. Became a fixture. A man building a swing set. The internal investigation at the insurance company turned up that Dana, had been the one to introduce Carl to the broker who wrote the policies. She'd been pulling strings from outside the marriage for years. Detective Morrissey thought there had been an argument between them some weeks before the crash. Maybe she was tired of waiting for the payout. Maybe Carl had gotten cold feet. Maybe she'd started slipping him the same kind of drugs he was going to slip my daughter. They'd never know for sure. But she'd been dosing him for at least 3 weeks before the accident, based on what the hospital found in his system. The crash had been an accident in the literal sense. He'd been swerving, probably, because the world was going gray. He'd been driving on Route 6 because that's where she told him to meet her. He survived the surgery. He survived 3 more after that. He pleaded guilty in the end, after his lawyer saw the evidence and told him a jury would never let him go. 2 consecutive life sentences. Heather Mallon's case was reopened in Indiana. The Iowa case, too. The first wife's family came to the sentencing. I shook her brother's hand, and there were no words that needed to be said. Diane pled separately. She got 35 years. Lena didn't believe me at first. That was the hardest part. The day after I got the kids out, she was at the hospital with a police escort, and Detective Morrissey was sitting across from her in a small consultation room with the envelope from Dr. Halverson, and Lena kept shaking her head and saying, No, that's not Greg, you don't know him. She thought I had paid the detective. She thought I had paid the doctor. She thought I had finally found a way to ruin her marriage the way she'd always been afraid I would. She didn't speak to me for 9 days. On the 10th day, she came to my house at 6 in the morning. She'd driven the kids home with her. The police had cleared the house. Diane was in custody. Greg was in a guarded hospital room. But she'd been alone in that house all night. She let herself in with her key. I heard the back door, and I came downstairs in my robe, and my daughter was sitting at my kitchen table with a stack of papers I recognized. The envelope. Detective Morrissey had given her copies. She looked up at me. Her eyes were red. She hadn't slept. Daddy. I'm here, baby. I read it. All of it. Every page. I sat down across from her. He told me that first year that he loved that I had a father like you. That he wished he'd had one. That he envied me. She was looking at the table, not at me. I thought he meant it. He probably did, in a way. Bad men love what they can use. Were you always going to be right about him? No, I said. I hope to God I was wrong every day. For 8 years. She started crying. I came around the table and put my arms around her, and she leaned against my chest and cried the way she had cried in the hospital that night, except this time she was crying for something she had lost. Not Greg. Not Carl or whoever he had been, the version of her life she had thought she was living. The version where her husband was kind and her family was whole, and her father had been wrong about everything. I held her until she was done. Then I made her coffee, and I made the kids pancakes when they woke up, and we sat at my kitchen table together, the 4 of us, and that was the beginning of putting something back together. It's been almost 2 years now. Lena and the kids moved in with me for the first 6 months. The house was too quiet for one old man anyway. Then she got a job at a hospital, not St. Catherine's, but a smaller one closer to home, doing intake for the cardiac unit. Dr. Halverson wrote her reference. She'd been a nurse before she met Carl, before he'd convinced her, slowly, year by year, that her job was too stressful and she should stay home. She rediscovered something of herself when she put those scrubs back on. I watched her do it. She and the kids are in a small apartment now, 10 minutes from me. Owen plays travel soccer. Brielle started kindergarten and decided immediately that she was going to be a veterinarian, then a marine biologist, then both. She's 6 now. She asks about her dad sometimes. Lena tells her the truth in the gentlest words she can find, and we'll add to it as the years pass. Owen has been to a therapist twice a week for over a year. Both kids are going to be all right. I believe that. Dr. Halverson retired last spring. The hospital threw him a party. Lena and I went. I stood in a corner in a borrowed suit jacket and watched him laugh with his colleagues, and when there was an opening I went over and shook his hand. I'd shaken his hand 20 times by then. I never got tired of doing it. You saved my whole family, I told him. Mr. Ashby, you saved your family. I just gave you the paperwork. That's not true, but I let him believe it. Last Thanksgiving we had the dinner at my house. Lena cooked. Hal came down with his wife. My sister came in from Erie. There were 11 of us around a table built for 8, and we ate too much, and Owen spilled gravy on my carpet and tried to clean it up with a paper napkin, and made it worse, and Lena and I caught each other's eye across the table and started laughing at the same time. It was the first laugh I'd seen come out of her without any weight behind it. The first one in years. After everyone had gone home and the dishwasher was running and the kids were asleep on my couch with the TV on low, Lena and I stood on my back porch in our coats. Cold night, stars sharp the way they only get in November. She had a mug of something warm in her hands. Daddy. Yeah. I want you to know something. I want to say it out loud. Okay. If you hadn't picked up that phone, if you hadn't driven all that way, if you hadn't trusted that doctor. She stopped. She took a breath. I want you to know I would not be here. Owen and Bree would not be here. I think about it every day. Sweetheart, I just need you to know. I see it now. All of it. I didn't say anything for a while. There wasn't anything to say. I'd put my arm around her shoulders, and we stood there in the cold and looked at the stars, and after a while she leaned her head against me. And I felt, for the first time in a long time, like Martha was somewhere nearby, watching us and approving. I'm 67 years old. I've buried a wife and lost my hearing in one ear, and I have a left knee that complains every time the weather changes. I am not a strong man. I have never been a strong man. But on one October night, when the phone rang at 2047 in the morning, I did the one thing a father is supposed to do. I went, and I listened, and I did what needed to be done. That's the lesson, if there is one. Trust the warning, even if it costs you, especially if it costs you. When someone tells you the person you love is in danger, listen first and doubt later. You can apologize for being wrong. You can't apologize for being too late. I tell that to anyone who listen now. I told it to a man at the hardware store last month, when he started telling me about his daughter's new boyfriend and how something felt off, but he was probably just being an old fool. I told him, "Don't be afraid of being a fool. Be afraid of being right and silent." He took it the way I meant it. He nodded. He thanked me. He went home. I drove home too. Past the produce stand, past the reservoir, past the bend where the deer cross. I came into my driveway and I sat in my truck for a minute, the way I sometimes do, and I looked at the porch light Lena had left on for me. I went inside. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat in my chair. And I was grateful. For all of it. Even the worst of it. Because the worst of it had brought me here, and here was a good place to be. I sit on my porch some evenings now, and I think about how close we came. How thin the margin was. If Dr. Halverson hadn't ordered that one particular blood panel, if his old colleague hadn't worked in insurance fraud, if the warning signs that had been sitting in front of me for 8 years had stayed invisible for one more week, my daughter Lena would have been the third name on a list. My grandchildren, Owen and Brielle, would have grown up calling a stranger dad. The thing I've come to understand in my 67th year is that nothing in this life arrives without a cause. Carl Anders did not become a monster overnight. He chose, a little at a time, year after year, and the woman who called herself Diane chose with him, and every choice they made bent their road further from the rest of us. The fire in Indiana led to the heart attack in Iowa, and the heart attack in Iowa led to the wedding in our church, and the wedding led to a swing set in a backyard and 2 babies and a careful, patient countdown to my daughter's death. Cause and effect. The chain pulls tight, whether we want to see it or not. But the same law works the other way. Dr. Halverson could have looked at that tox screen and said it wasn't his business. He could have signed the chart and gone home. He didn't. He pulled the thread because he was the kind of man who pulls threads, and that one decision, made by a tired surgeon at 4:30 in the morning, saved everything I love in this world. My brother Hal could have asked questions on the phone. He didn't. He drove. Cause and effect run in both directions, and a good act, however small, ripples just as far as a bad one. What I want to leave with anyone hearing this is 3 things, because 3 is what I've got. The first is to be decent. Be the man who pulls the thread. Be the brother who drives without asking. Decency is not soft, and it is not optional, and the world runs on it more than people realize. The second is to use your head. I had felt something wrong about Carl for 8 years, and I had pushed it down because I told myself I was being a jealous father. Trust your eyes. Look at patterns. A man who lies about small things is rehearsing for the larger ones. Use your head even when your heart is telling you to look away, because looking away is how good people end up at funerals they didn't see coming. The third is to keep going. The night Lena wouldn't take my calls was harder, in a private way, than the night in the hospital. I thought I'd lost her even after saving her. But I kept showing up. I kept the porch light on. Whatever the thing is that has been put in front of you, do not lay it down. You are stronger than you know, and the people you love need you to find that out.